All right. And I want to do this video. My only issue with Mr. Research is that, I was cool with him for a long time. And, there were no issues between me and him for a very long time. And then one day, out of the blue, he ended up just switching up on me. And it was very weird because how should I say it? It was weird because you know it happened very abruptly, and it happened in about 20. I want to say 2021, 2022. It happened about early 2021 when he started talking like that, and all of a sudden, like out of the blue, you know, he started calling me his nemesis. And he's like, City of Truth is my nemesis. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And I woke up and I'm like, okay, why is this guy talking like this? You know what I mean? Because I hadn't made, up until then, I had not made any videos even talking about him. I had not done anything even trying to be detrimental towards him or anything like that. But this dude woke up one day and decided, you know what, City of Truth is my enemy. And I think some of it had to do with the success that I was having in trucking. Because I drive trucks, I make money, driving trucks, and I own my own truck. Okay, so once I bought my own truck, and I didn't even really talk about buying my own truck, even on the City of Truth channel that I had. I didn't even really talk about the truck. I may have, I have a trucking channel too, but I don't really put much up on it. But somehow this dude figured out, I had a truck, and he started showing out behind me having a truck. You know what I mean? But because he started showing out behind me having a truck, he started saying things like, City of Truth is my enemy. And then he started promoting like this soft core like leftism, talking about and then a number of occasions he has outright advocated for like basically, communism. On a number of occasions he's done it, and he has praised communism. He has says that communism looks after workers, which I don't know how it does that when every communist society kills its workers, by the hundreds of millions, and starves them to death. So I don't know how the hell they looking out for workers when they're starving them to death. Okay, but he started promoting that ideology, and that shit came out of the blue because before that, like from 2017 up to 2019, Mr. Research would always portray himself as like this conservative. He was always talking about women all the time, and at that time, I was still into that type of content. I'm not into that type of stuff anymore. I'm not into like women content anymore. Now I mainly just talk about business and financial and stuff like that. I don't talk about women like that anymore. But at that time, I still was listening to women content, and the way he portrayed himself is he portrayed himself like he was like he was sympathetic towards male, males in the society and stuff, and he was, he portrayed himself that way. But when you look at his actions and stuff, all he does now is he's a lot like Psychopathia. Like all he does now is berate men and go after men and attack men and talk about how men ain't doing this and men ain't doing that and stuff like that. All he does is go after black men. Okay, nothing that he's saying is edifying towards black men at all. But he, he said that he became a conservative when Ronald Reagan went into the White House, but then he turned around and started attacking Ronald Reagan, saying Ronald Reagan created no fault divorce. First of all, Ronald Reagan did not necessarily create no fault divorce. No fault divorce was something that happened on a state level, and there were a number of states that were approving of it before Ronald Reagan even got elected. And when he got elected, he just approved it on the federal level. But no fault divorce was already going on the state level, and there was a reason for it at the time. Judges were tired of people lying in court, on their divorce papers and stuff like that, and they just wanted a means of dealing with that. Now, to blame like the breakdown of the black family and on no fault divorce doesn't make sense, because the black family was already disintegrating in the early to mid 1960s. Okay, and a big part of that was civil rights, and black people switched from being Republicans in the 50s to switch over to supporting Democrats. So once black people started supporting Democrats, they started supporting more social welfare initiatives and relying more on on government subsidies, and also government jobs and stuff like that, and a lot of the entrepreneurial spirit started to erode in the black community. So you started getting more black people working in government and stuff like that. And it's kind of sad. That's when you start getting more immigrants coming to the black community and setting up businesses. Okay, a lot of that played a role, but he doesn't talk about that. He just talks about no fault divorce, and it was this law. He doesn't talk about how black folks, actually in the 60s going into the 70s, rejected. There came a point when black folks, black people were being increasingly urbanized, but there came a point when black folks started to rejected like family structure, for various reasons. And another part of it, deindustrialization did play a role, but at the same time, the black politicians who were in charge of black population centers like Detroit, like you had Coleman Young in Detroit, and when he started having deindustrialization in Detroit, he didn't blame. He blamed it on like racism and white supremacy, instead of trying to come up with like new innovative ways to bring businesses and or even build businesses in the city to employ people. He just blamed everything on white supremacy and stuff. And that set Detroit back decades. Detroit didn't develop for decades because of that. And Coleman Young was also a Marxist. He was an anti-capitalist, but he had a whole city that was he conditioned the whole city to be dependent on the big three auto producers, and he just blamed everything on them, blamed everything on white people, blamed everything, and Detroit went downhill for so many years. You know what I mean? And that's just what it was. But you get people like Mr. Research, and he wants to promote unions, like he wants unions to win so badly, but he has this very childlike view of unions. He basically says that unions are always good, unions will always protect you as a worker, and that's not true, because my dad was in the Teamsters Union for years, and he told me stories about how if the union didn't like somebody, they would get them up out of there. And some of the shop studs were not pro-worker. A lot of them, some of them were pro-company. And if there was an issue, they would side with the company. They wouldn't, They wouldn't even fuck with the workers. They wouldn't even try to help the workers or anything like that. And that was not an uncommon thing. You know what I mean? That was some real shit that actually went down, and that went on, where you had shop studs favoring the companies over the workers. You know, it happened. You know, it was what it was. You know, and people like Mr. Research though don't people like Mr. Research they don't want to acknowledge that. They just always want to portray unions as being good and being for the so-called being for the black worker and stuff. But a union can get a black worker fired in a heartbeat. You know, and then the constant attacks on entrepreneurs and stuff like that. That shit is just weird to me. Why would you attack a black man or woman that's trying to hustle and build a life for themselves? Then he criticized one of his friends, and what really was weird to me is he criticized one of his friends for leaving Oakland, California, moving out into the suburbs, okay, and starting a welding business. And he went out to see this man's business, and instead of congratulating this man on his business and on his success, Mr. Research was like, why are you, you know, building things and making things, and asking people to buy them? Like, what kind of fucking question is that? Why does fucking Walmart buy, wholesale products and ask people and then sell them to people in their stores? Why does Walmart do that? You know what I mean? It's like, why would you ask some shit? It's like, he's so pro-Marxist. It's ridiculous. So I said, I got to leave this guy alone. This guy, Mr. Research, is bad news. And all those years he was bitching about women, what he was really bitching about is how he's basically like a failure. Like, he basically left California, went to Washington, went to Renton, Washington. Had a white girl, was doing good, okay, but he wanted to still be in the drug game, so he got arrested, had to do some time. Disappointed the white girl. The white girl left him. He got out of jail, went into I guess took a management certification class, moved out to Atlanta, thinking that because Atlanta's his chocolate city, he was going to do well in Atlanta, but he didn't take the time to understand the local politics in Atlanta, and he ended up homeless in Atlanta. Okay? And Atlanta is not a place as a black man you should be homeless. I mean, there's a lot of jobs out there in Atlanta for black people, whether it's working at the airport or working in a warehouse. There's a lot of stuff out there for black people. How the hell you are homeless in a black city full of black businesses and stuff? Because the only way that could happen is if you're just not trying to network with the black people that are there. Which, and I've said this before, I don't think he was trying to do that. He went out there just on some introverted shit and complaining about the politicians out there and how horrible they were and all that kind of thing, and ended up homeless. Had to come back to Cali, had to live with his parents in his parents' house again. Okay, so he's been working management jobs and stuff all over the Bay Area, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'll never criticize a black man or woman for working, but what you have to look at is that he can't stand a black man or woman who creates their own success. He can't stand that shit. That bothers him. So anyone who's like an entrepreneur or a business owner or anything, you need to stay away from this dude, because he's not for you. He's not going to be on your side. He's going to be bad news. He's going to be hating on you. He's going to be jealous and all of that. So you need to watch that. You know what I mean? So that's what I say, I watch out for Mr. Research. I don't really trust him like that. I don't really mess with him like that anymore. But I'm building up my platform and my channel and stuff. I'm gonna build up like a business related, platform and stuff like that, and just help people who want to learn about business and start their own trucking companies or stuff like that. And eventually I want to branch off into tech too, but that's in the far future. Okay? But that's what I learned. I learned to stay away from people like him because he's not a positive thinker. Everything that he says is negative. Everything's about, and then he always branches everything, and he can never stay on topic. He'll be talking about women, and then he'll start talking about foreign policy, and then he'll start talking about management, and then he'll bring it back to women, and then he'll start talking about celebrities, and I can't deal with all that chaos and stuff. You know what I mean? So, that being said, let me know what y'all think. Get the likes up. Peace.